My 6-year-old son and I moved back in with my mom a week ago. My mom lives in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, so she turned the basement into a playroom to help deal with the horrible winters. But nothing could prepare me for how elaborate it was. As soon as Aiden saw it, he squealed, but I froze. It was a lot. A huge wooden fort raised off the ground, a green plastic slide leading from its massive ball pit, a yellow brick road painted on the floor that melted into the Wizard of Oz mural on the west wall. Each wall was different. The others were Lion King, Snow White, and Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And there were not one, but 2 plastic playhouses across from the fort. Honestly, it was almost a little creepy how elaborate it was. My mom and I don't have the closest relationship. We used to be close, but she never approved of my soon-to-be ex-husband, Robbie. And she was never crafty or artsy. Did she hire people to do all this? And while the basement was souped up to the max, the lighting was still depressing. 3 bare bulbs fighting to light the space. The bright colors of the ball pit and dim shadow made the place feel more like Five Nights at Freddy's than a Chuck E. Cheese. Shadows pulled behind the slide in the fort, and I wondered if Mom had ever eradicated her mouse problem. I watched as Aiden slid down the green slide into the ball pit, screeching with laughter. "How much did this cost, Mom?" I asked, turning to her. She waved her hand nervously. "Don't worry about it." "No, seriously, how much did you spend?" She shrugged. "I did it myself." "You did not," I said, breaking into a smile. "Come on, you can't draw a Simba to save your life." I gestured to the Simba walking next to Nala as they entered the elephant graveyard. It wasn't perfect. There wasn't much shading and the faces were a little screwy, but it was way better than Mom could ever do. Elephant graveyard. That's an interesting choice. Actually, all 4 murals were a little morbid. I stared at Snow White leaning onto her cottage, reaching for the shiny red apple the witch was holding up. Definitely not the fairest one of all anymore, with one eye an inch higher than the other and her arm twisted at an impossible angle. "Okay, I had a little help," she admitted, "but seriously, don't worry about it." Honestly, I was grateful. With no friends here and bitterly cold winters ahead of us, this would be absolutely amazing for Aiden. I smiled and gave her a hug. "You didn't have to do all this, but thanks." As I hugged her, I stared at the corner shelf stacked with dolls, including a Dorothy with a miniature Toto, and Belinda, my favorite doll from when I was Aiden's age. They stared back with glassy eyes. The first few days were phenomenal. I felt so free, like this was the first day of the rest of our lives. The divorce was almost final, and I was hundreds of miles away, and I was with my mom and Aiden and was having the greatest time of his life. Even though we were already under 6 inches of snow, things were looking up. It wasn't until Tuesday. After school, I let Aiden down the playroom while I got some food ready for him. He wasn't alone more than 10 minutes. When I went down, he wasn't there. "Aiden," I called. No answer. "Aiden!" I spun around. He wasn't in plain sight, probably in the raised-up fort where one of the plastic playhouses ignored me as usual. "Aiden, please come out now," I said. "I have your food." Silence. Something is wrong. "If you don't come out now, no screens for the rest of the day," I called, panic creeping into my voice. Nothing. I hurried over to the fort, hoisting myself up on the ladder, a Snow White book in a Hot Wheels car, but no Aiden. Came back down and wrenched open the plastic door to each playhouse, each making a popping sound. They were empty. "Aiden," I called. Tap, tap, tap. I whirled around, just in time to see a few balls in the ball pit move. Just the tiniest bit, but enough for me to catch it. Oh great, we're playing hide and seek now, are we? I scrambled over, crouched at the inflatable plastic edge, and began digging through the balls. I didn't think the pit was even deep enough to fully hide Aiden. "Where the fuck are you?" I blanched as my hands hit the bottom of the pit. Dirty white plastic stared back up at me. No Aiden. "Where are you?" I yelled. "He's not here." There must have been a mouse or just the balls settling from the running around. But something told me to keep digging. He had to be down here. I hadn't heard him come up the stairs, and the windows were far too high for him to reach. So I kept digging. And then I saw it. His shoe. Oh God. He was lying at the bottom of the ball pit. No. I dug wildly, uncovering him. A leg, a torso, then his face, his eyes closed. Oh God, he's dead. No. "Aiden!" I screamed. His eyes fluttered open. "Mommy?" he asked, groggy. I pulled him up and hugged him tight, tears streaming down my face. "What happened?" I choked as I finally pulled back. "What happened?" "I don't know." "Did you fall?" He thought about it and then shook his head. "Did you hurt yourself?" "No, I don't think I was. I was just sleeping." Sleeping? He fell asleep at the bottom of the ball pit? with only a thin plastic liner between him and the hard, ice-cold concrete floor. He must have hit his head. He must have passed out. Then how all the balls get on top of him? Does anything hurt? I asked. He shook his head. I went to sleep. My heart began to slow. Maybe he really did fall asleep. Maybe he laid down and covered himself with the balls. It was dark and quiet. He was tired from school probably. And he had low blood sugar probably. Maybe. I heard of kids going missing, the police being called, only to be found sleeping in some weird place no one checked, like a closet, or in a somewhat dangerous place like under a bed. I guess Aiden had occasionally dozed off in front of the TV, or in other slightly strange places, especially when he was sick, but always on a couch or something soft. Everything about this just felt wrong. I'm okay, he insisted. Sounding annoyed, he pushed himself up and looked around. Then he went over to the table. I was still gasping for breath, still shaking. He's okay, I told myself. He's fine. See, he just fell asleep. But everything just felt wrong. Later that night, while sitting with Mom, I asked her, "Did you get the basement tested for mold?" Mom looked up at me frowning. "I mean, a few years ago I did." "What about radon?" "Yeah, we did that too, when we moved in." "Carbon monoxide?" "There's a detector down there," she crossed her arms. "You know, I wouldn't put Aiden in any place that wasn't safe." "I know," I said hesitantly. "Is this still about him falling asleep?" she asked, turning her back on me to stir the pot on the stove. "Don't worry about that. Kids fall asleep in the weirdest of places. One time you fell asleep on the floor, sprawled out like this." She flung her arms out. "I freaked out and thought you were dead, but you were just fine." "I guess," I said. I still felt anxious about it. I knew my kid and my motherly sixth sense was screaming. Something is wrong. Something has to be wrong. "Your nerves are fried," Mom said. "You've been in survival mode for 7 years now, and who wouldn't be with that bastard? But it's over now. You can relax. Not everything is a threat. Not everything is the end of the world. You're safe now." "Robbie wasn't that bad," I sniped, even though I hated Robbie with every fiber of my being. Damn it, I hate it when she's right. Mom ignored me. "The doctor said he was okay, right? So he's fine." "Yeah, I take him to urgent care earlier, out of abundance of caution. But the doctor said he seemed completely fine, chalked it up with the move, fatigue, and stress." Mom moved the pot off the stove. "Soup's ready. Are you sure Aiden won't eat it?" "Yeah, he hates soup," I said. "All kinds of soup?" "Yep." "Okay," she said with a laugh. "Guess he's more like you than I thought." Yeah, even though Aiden had Robbie's wavy golden brown hair and bright blue eyes, he had none of his aggression, none of his anger, and all of his gentleness. I would do my best to make sure it stayed that way. That night, I couldn't sleep. At about 1 a.m., I got out of my bed and went downstairs. The house was peaceful and silent, and I sat at the table with some weird lemon yogurt my mom had bought trying to relax, but I just couldn't. What if Aiden really didn't hit his head and the doctor didn't notice? He could die in his sleep, you know. Or what if there was a mouse in the ball pit and it bit him? What if he has, rabies? What if he'd had touched or eaten something toxic and then passed out? All this stuff was some Facebook marketplace, according to Mom. For all I knew, the ball pit could have been bacteria, mold, lead paint from an old house. The play floor could be covered in asbestos or drugs. Did she even clean this stuff? Vet the cellars at all? The doctor didn't run any blood tests or anything. We wouldn't even know. I forced myself to take a deep breath. Don't spiral. Don't. If Aiden huffed cocaine off the floor on the play floor, you know. You would know. Before I knew it, though, I was walking back to the basement stairs. I just went to see, and then I'll go to sleep. The stairs creaked under my weight. When I got to the bottom, I shuddered. Other than the dim golden light spilling out of the staircase, the basement was pitch black. I would only see the wet glint of Doll's eyes on the corner shelf. I walked forward, cursing as I stepped on Hot Wheels. I reached my hand and flailed for the string. Click! The light came on, jittering to life. Now, in the quiet of the night, the basement looked 10 times worse. Like those photos you see on abandoned playhouse and theme parks. There was something so disturbing about the brightly colored slides, smiling stuffed animals, juxtaposed with silent shadows and decay. The play fort rose above me, the flying monkey Stuffy staring down with me with the mean little eyes. The balls in the pit glinted under the harsh light, bright greens and reds and yellows. I turned on my phone flashlight and walked around the perimeter of the basement first, looking for mouse droppings. I didn't see any, and the tension in my chest had eased up. I walked over to the first playhouse and pushed it open with my foot. The plastic squeaked. I shone the light inside. Cobwebs gathered under the corner, but other than that, it was empty. The second playhouse wasn't empty. In the middle of the concrete floor sat a shoe. Red and white, with dirty little laces, slightly smaller than Aiden's size. I reached in and picked it up. How did this get here? It wasn't ours. Maybe Mom had bought Aiden a pair of shoes before we arrived. but these look used. I swallowed and tucked the shoe into a corner. I'll ask her about it tomorrow. I continued my search, climbing up the ladder to the wooden fort, and shined all around. Nothing looked amiss here either. Sighing, I made my way back down, which was much harder than it looked. Finally back on solid ground, I stared at the ball pit. I slowly stepped inside. The plastic balls bumped against my calves. The pit felt deeper than it had earlier, definitely deep enough to hide a child. I waded through them in the middle of the pit, roughly where Aiden had been lying. The middle seemed even deeper. The balls nearly up to my knees. It must have cost a fortune to fill this. I crouched down and dug into them until I could see the white plastic liner underneath. I half expected to see a smear of blood proving that Aiden fell, but I didn't. I slipped my hand under the balls and moved it in a wide circle around me, feeling for a crease or a slippery spot that might have tripped him. The balls rolled against my arms all the way up to my elbow as I was widening the circumference of my circle and kept feeling. My hand collided with something that jerked back when I touched it. No. I yanked my hand back out and froze. My heart pounded in my ears. Something's in here. Oh God. Something. Plop. A red ball in front of me moved. It bounced down to the others. Plop, plop, plop. Just that one ball. Not as a mouse scurrying underneath, making them all move. No, it was like something underneath had intentionally poked just that one ball. What the hell, I thought. I stood there frozen, the cold plastic pulling around my calves. I couldn't move. I couldn't breathe. Another plop. A green one spinning and rolling towards me. Oh God, there's something in here. I scrambled toward the edge. Plop, plop, plop. Behind me, getting closer, something caught my foot. Or live or not, I couldn't tell. The ball pit flew up to meet me as my arms pinwheeled. Oh God, no. Brightly colored balls filled my vision, then darkness. My eyes blinked open. Bright sunlight streamed in through the tiny windows 8 feet up. Cement walls, crudely painted. Sharp pain throbbing through my head. Where the hell? Oh, the events of last night came flooding back. I was still in the basement. Terrified, I thrashed out of the ball pit. Wincing in pain, I pulled myself up. I ran upstairs and checked on Aiden. He was fine, still sleeping since it was only 6 a.m. Mom, I choked out, pounding on her door. I told her everything through sobs. When Aiden woke up, I went back to the doctor. I was certain he hit his head and blacked out, just like I had. But he was fine. I got checked out myself as well. I had a concussion. When we got home, I went down to the basement and emptied the ball pit. It took an hour, but all I found was another red shoe near where I've tripped and fell. No explanation for the balls moving. It was probably a mouse, Mom said. It wasn't, I insisted. I cleaned the rest of the basement too, looked in every nook and cranny, and I didn't find any evidence of anything. Still, I couldn't let Aiden play down here. Every time I thought about it, my stomach twisted. I don't want Aiden down here to play anymore, I told my mom. You're freaking out about nothing, she replied. He fell asleep after school because he was tired. You got yourself so worked up that you tripped and fell and got a concussion or something. I don't care. It's my kid, and I don't want him going down there. For a few days, everything was fine. Then Aiden came down with a fever. At 2 a.m., I woke to him screaming that he didn't feel good. I pressed a hand to his forehead. He felt a bit hot, but with that came relief. Maybe he really did fall asleep in the ball pit a few days ago. When he's sick, he'll fall asleep anywhere. I ran downstairs and rummaged for a thermometer, but we hadn't unpacked all the way yet, and had no idea where my mom kept her stuff. Fuck, where is it? Well, at least he didn't feel too hot, but still. I ran back upstairs, but when I pushed the door open, I froze in my tracks. Aiden wasn't crying anymore. He was just sitting there, in the middle of his race car bed, staring at the wall. Aiden? I asked. He didn't turn towards me. He just kept staring. I scrambled over to him to get in his face. Aiden! His eyes finally tore from the wall and looked at me. Are you okay? I don't feel good, he repeated. And then he started crying again. After holding him for several minutes, I ran over to my mom's room and banged on the door. She didn't know where her thermometer was, but she got some Advil for him. I gave it to him, and he settled back to go to sleep. For 45 minutes, even though I'd given him Advil, he kept waking up every hour until dawn. At which point the fever seemed to have broken, and he decided he felt well enough to watch TV. Fuck this. I set him up in front of the TV, but I was so tired I could barely move. My mom woke up, and I ran over and begged her to watch him. Of course, she said, going to the fridge and getting her orange juice. She smiled sweetly at Aiden. We'll have fun together, won't we? Eternally grateful, I hobbled back up the stairs. I woke up and rolled over looking at my phone. 2:13 p.m. Holy shit, I slept that long? I got out of bed, dressed, and went downstairs. Sorry, Mom, I'm up, I called as I zipped up my hoodie. The house was quiet. A coloring book lay out on the kitchen table, some crayons scattered around. Aiden's Hot Wheels were scattered on the floor. There was a plate of half-eaten chicken nuggets on the counter. "Mom! Aiden!" I yelled. She must have taken him somewhere. Unease settled in my gut. I leaned to look out the window over the sink to see both her and my car in the driveway. Oh God, what if my mom fainted or something? What if Aiden ran out the door? I scrambled around. "Aiden! Mom!" "We're down here," a faint voice called. I stopped. Of course, the basement. I thundered down the stairs. Mom was sitting on the floor reading a book while Aiden sat on one of the playhouses talking to himself. "I told you not to bring him down here," I said. "I know, but he was so bored and he was on YouTube for like 2 hours," she replied. "I told you it wasn't safe." "Will you stop? There's nothing wrong. Besides, you checked the whole place anyway. Everything's fine." I wanted to yell and scream, but I had checked the whole basement, even though I knew I'd seen the balls moving, and she'd been stuck with him for a few hours while I slept. Now that Aiden was sick, it made more sense that he was ready to fall asleep for a nap down there, and I really had freaked myself out and fallen and hit my head. I checked the entire place. No one, nothing was here. "Okay, well, thanks. I'll take over now," I said. "Why don't you go have a bite to eat?" she asked. I said, "I'll take over," I replied. "Okay." She closed her book and headed towards the stairs. I was waiting for the door to close, then turned to Aiden. I could see a bit of his long, wavy, golden brown hair poking out of one of the playhouses, bobbing up and down as he played. "You have fun with Granny?" I asked. He didn't reply. I scooted closer to the playhouse. The plastic little flower boxes looked especially fake up close, pointy seams cutting through the lavender and peach-colored plastic. "Aiden, are you hungry? You want to go upstairs and finish your chicken nuggets?" Still nothing, which wasn't unusual when he was really in the zone. I watched the back of his head through the playhouse window slowly bobbing, but then I realized there was something off about the way his head was moving. It wasn't bobbing up and down as if he were concentrating on something. It was more swinging slowly back and forth. "Aiden?" I asked, my throat growing tight. I grabbed the plastic door and wrenched it open. All the blood drained from my face. His hair taped to a baseball, tied to the ceiling of the playhouse, slowly swinging back and forth. "Oh God, what the fuck, what the... Gotcha!" I spun around to see Aiden behind me, giggling madly. "Fooled you," he said, pumping his fist. "What the... Grammy gave me a haircut, see?" he asked, pointing to his new short hair. I just sat there, mouth gaped open. This isn't funny," I finally croaked out. "It is funny," he taunted. "I pranked you." I reached in, yanked the ball down, and stormed up the stairs. "Mom!" I shouted. She was sitting at the kitchen table eating a sandwich, scrolling through her phone. "What?" she asked, but then she turned around and saw I was holding the ball. "Did you tell him to do this?" She hedged, seeing how mad I was. "We did it together. It was his idea," she added defensively. "And what about the haircut? Was that his idea?" "He looks much better with short," she said, averting her eyes. "I don't care. Did you make him cut his hair?" "I suggested it. He seemed fine with it." I couldn't believe this. She'd cut his hair, told him to tape it on a ball, or maybe did it herself to do the totally unhinged sick prank. "This is crazy," I said, holding the ball up. "Fucking crazy." "Okay, calm down, okay?" she said. Holding her hands up, I watched him for like 7 hours. I gave him a haircut. He was bored. I told him he could prank you when you got up. "You said it was his idea," I shouted. "It was. I just told him we could prank you. I can't believe you would do that on your own." I was cut off by Aiden's yelp coming from downstairs. For a split second, I froze. Time seemed to stop as Mom and I stared at each other. Then I sprinted for the basement stairs. I was screaming, but when I found Aiden, he was standing in the middle of the basement, not upset, but laughing. Look, Mommy," he shouted. I paled. He was wearing the red shoes. I thought they were too small for him, but now they seemed to fit perfectly as he jumped over and grinned. "I got cool shoes," he said over and over. "Take those off," I said. "Take them off now." "Why?" he cried. They could be dirty." I dodged for him and grabbed the shoes, tearing them off. This was too weird. He couldn't wear some other kid's shoes. We went back upstairs and I threw them out. My mom watched me, arms crossed, and concern looked on her face. For the next several days, Aiden seemed off. Meltdowns, barely talking to me. He must be sick, I kept telling myself. But his fever was gone, and he wasn't coughing, wasn't showing any symptoms. Something is wrong. There are long-term illnesses that can happen after an infection. His behavior was so different and erratic, I wonder if the fever had caused some sort of neurological response. I took him back to the doctor to get his blood taken, a full exam, everything. The most random things were thrown around, from gluten sensitivity to stress from the move. Change the diet, get him more exercise, do a mold test. I felt like I was being pulled in 1,000 different directions. but nothing prepared me for tonight. I woke up startled at 3 a.m. I rolled over trying to get comfortable, but as I was falling back to sleep, I heard a soft sound. The sound of something rolling across the floor. I jerked up just in time to see a red ball rolling out from under the bed. I watched in horror as it bounced against the closet door and came to a stop. Hands shaking, I grasped the edge of my bed and leaned over, peering down. I couldn't see anything, just darkness. Then there was a sound of something shifting underneath me. 2 small hands shot out, fingers curling around the underside of the bed, pale and gray in the darkness. "Aiden?" I whispered. The sound of cloth sliding against wood. A tuft of hair poked out from under the bed, then a pale forehead, then Aiden's eyes staring back up at me. Unseeing, blank. "Aiden!" I screamed. He perched out further from under the bed, his lips moved frantically, forming whispered words I could barely hear. "I don't want to go. I don't want to go. I don't want to go." I jumped out of bed and grabbed Aiden, shook him awake. For a minute he remained in the trance, this sleepwalking state, until he woke up with a start. "Mom," he murmured. I put him back to sleep, sobbing. When he was finally sound asleep, I ran to my mom's room, pushed the door open. The bed was empty. "Mom," I called out, my entire body weak. "I'm down here," she called. I ran down in the kitchen. My mom sat, facing away from me, her reflection in the glass door staring blankly back. "Have a seat," she said, her voice shaking. "I have something to tell you." My heart plummeted. I sat across from her, my legs weak. What's going on?" Her hand shook as she reached for her cup, took a long sip. "I didn't get this stuff downstairs from Facebook Marketplace. I got everything from one person," she said. I stared at her, frozen. One of my best friends knew someone who knew this woman. Her son had just died. It was cancer. She was looking to give everything away. A ball pit, the play fort, everything. She finally looked up at me. Now that I think about it, it's weird. Why would she give it all to me? Why wouldn't she split it up or give it to a friend or something? She took another drink. When I went over there, we chatted first, and she wanted to see a photo of Aiden, and I showed her. She blinked back tears. "I'm so sorry. It didn't seem weird then." She showed me a whole bunch of photos of her kid, and he looked a lot like Aiden, just a little younger. And she began to sob. "He had short hair and wore those red shoes in every photo." "Mom, what are you saying?" She sniffed and then her eyes met mine. "Earlier tonight I made soup," she whispered, "and he ate it. He ate all of it." My heart dropped. "I don't think that's Aiden anymore."